So welcome to chapter 4. This chapter will be dedicated to reference building, or détermination nominale in French. Basically, it is the idea that determiners play a part in building reference, that is to say, in connecting a word with its referent in reality. So here is the outline for this course. The first question we can ask ourselves is, what are determiners and articles for? Well, determiners take part in the reference building. If you say man is single, the word man does not refer to anything. You're going to ask, what man? So you need a determiner to build that reference. That tells you that the referent is nearby. You could point at him or a picture of him. Or you can be more specific by saying the man on the cover of this magazine. Here, the determiner signals how the reference is built, how to forge a bond between the word and the real thing, the referent. For instance, the doesn't tell you which man it is, but it tells you that you have got everything you need to identify the referent. In fact, it is the prepositional complement that builds the reference on the cover of this magazine. Now let's see if you can spot determiners in a sentence. Okay, you have a weird animation going on, so you had an exercise about how to spot determiners, but my animation seems to go wrong. This is something you can do by yourself. On your brochure, you should be able to determine what determiners you can see. And the conclusions was that you have a series of determiners. So all the examples from the exercise are here. And basically what you have are, from left to right, demonstratives like this, that, and the plural, these and those. Enough, every, and more belong to the category of quantifiers. There you have possessives like my, her, his, your, etc. Genitives, John's, the week's, everyone's, etc. And finally, articles. A, the, and the null article. So we're going to give special attention to articles, and you will study the rest later. At that point, you should be able to complete activity 1 on eCampus, which you should do. So let's continue now, and we're going to start with your favorite mistakes. We have already talked about articles, actually, when we studied the classification of nouns, remember? So here is a quick recap about what you should already know by heart, but which can be confusing sometimes. First of all, or un must be used with a singular count noun, even in appositions, contrary to the French. So if you translate these examples into French, Angelina, a mother of 6, is freshly divorced, good luck. Angelina, mère de 6 enfants, est récemment divorcée. Or John is a doctor, John est médecin. You notice that the French doesn't use the indefinite article. So this is the source of mistakes. Other examples are pretty easy to find. He's a teacher, il est professeur. Paul, a jazz singer, is cute. Paul, chanteur de jazz, est mignon, etc., etc. Secondly, let's continue with the null article. As you know, the null article must be used with singular non-count nouns, like in furniture or music, for instance. You can, of course, use quantifiers. You can say, I bought 3 pieces of furniture. I love this piece of music. But whenever you come across a singular non-count nouns, you should use the zero article, like in I hate buying furniture, I love music. So the first rule we can infer from what we have already seen before is that the first criterion to consider when choosing an article is the type of noun. Whether the noun is a singular count noun, a non-count noun, a collective noun, or a plural count noun, you will not have the same possibilities. So by that time, you should go to eCampus and complete activity 2, which is a translation from French to English, and which should help you make sure you don't make typical mistakes anymore. Right, so let's get started with what you don't know now. There are 3 articles in English, and they are seen as a system. something that works according to some internal logic. And part of the job here is to discover that logic. So I'm going to give you a general definition. It might seem abstruse at first, not very clear, but by the end of the chapter you will see that logic and you'll be able to discuss it. More interestingly, what you've seen so far as exceptions, things that you had to learn by heart and could not account for, you will see as more regular. It will make more sense, and with a bit of luck, you will find it easier to remember. So, 3 articles. Zero or null article, it really is an article. It actually plays a central role in the system, much more so than in French. It exists in French as well. You tend to forget it, but when you say il est docteur, elle skie sans lunettes, you are using the zero article. You use the null article when there is no reference building for some reason or other. If you're not interested in forging a bond between a word and its referent, that's when you use the null article, and we'll come back to it. You use a or an for singular count nouns, obviously, when the reference building is in progress. What does it mean? Again, we'll see that later. There is some link being made between the word and its referent, but it's not complete yet. Finally, you use the when the reference is built, when reference building is complete, when the word reference bond is forged. So to understand how articles work the way they do, how they create a system in English, we'll have a look at the way they work with proper nouns. It can be quite confusing for a French native, so make sure you understand the logic. We are going to click on several sentences, and the process we used in class was called an inductive process, in which you had to guess the rule from the examples. I'm not going to show you all the clickers. I'm just going to jump to the conclusions that you have reached in class. So make sure you take a look at eCampus and the slides recapitulating all the quizzes we took in class so that you make sure you have all the examples. So that was the job you had to do. You had to find some logic in the sentences we studied and try to explain why proper nouns, as a rule, take the null article, and in one sentence, explain why the is sometimes used with a proper noun. And this is the conclusion we reached, and we said that it was temporary results because we continued our demonstration afterwards. So proper nouns, people or place, are self-referential. When you say Brad is nice, you know who Brad is. You don't need any article to forge a bond between the word Brad and the referent in reality. You know which person you're talking about. Same thing with places, okay? When you say Texas is a big state, Texas doesn't require any article because it is self-referential, okay? There's no need to build a reference. Reference is automatic. So as a rule, proper nouns are preceded by the null article. The is used when the last noun of the noun phrase is a common noun. For instance, the United States. States is the head of the noun phrase and it is a common noun. The United Kingdom. Kingdom is a common noun and the head of the noun phrase, hence the use of the article. We continued our investigation and we realized that the is also included in cases of ellipsis. Ellipsis, remember, is when you omit a word. For example, you would say, the Mediterranean Sea is a beautiful sea, okay? The Mediterranean Sea. Sea is the head of the noun phrase, it's a common noun. But it also works if you omit it, if you have a case of ellipsis. When you say, I love going to the Mediterranean, and I can't say the word properly, I love going to the Mediterranean, you still use the article the even though the word sea has been omitted. We continued our investigations and realized that actually the is also used with proper nouns in the plural. For example, he went to the Philippines for a holiday. The Philippines, plural noun. The Netherlands are a fine country. The Netherlands, plural. It also works with family name. For example, have you seen the Pitts lately? No, I haven't. I've heard they're getting a divorce. Okay, the Pitts. So why use the in front of a plural proper noun? we justify it by the fact that a proper noun usually refers to one person or one item. And if the item is in fact a set, for example, a range of mountains like the Alps, or a group of islands like the Philippines, or a group of people like a family, a couple, the pits, then there is some kind of elaboration. There is no direct link between the item and the noun. So the plural is the sign that a set was created, that separate items were seen as belonging to a group. There's been some linguistic and conceptual work, and the is the sign of that work. For instance, if you consider the Philippines, you need to consider the entire archipelago with all the islands in it. Same thing with the pits. When you say the pits refer to Brad, Angie, and their 6 kids. The is a mark of this mental construction. But there is more, as we studied. And then we focused on rivers. Okay, a little vocabulary first. Could you name each of these rivers starting from the top left? So right, we have the Amazon first, the Seine in Paris, the Nile in Egypt, and the Danube. Right. We said before that when the last noun of the noun phrase is a proper noun, there should be no there should be no definite article, like for example in Lake Michigan. Michigan is a proper noun and the head of the noun phrase, hence no article. So when we say the River Seine, there should be no the. Are rivers an exception, therefore? Well, the answer is ambiguous, yes and no. Yes, at least in British English, because they don't behave like other words, and it's a way to remember the rule. Note that American English is more logical because they say the Hudson River, which therefore follows the rule. The Hudson River, river is the head of the noun phrase, and it is a common noun, hence the definite article. In British English, it goes the other way round. You would say the River Thames, so which doesn't follow the rule. Some linguists have argued that some proper nouns are weaker than others, rivers but also some countries like the Ukraine or buildings like the Kremlin, and therefore they take the definite article. But we could also imagine another explanation. Rivers are not isolated like lakes can be. They form a network. Smaller rivers go into bigger ones, so this could be actually iconic. The could be the linguistic sign corresponding to a network like reality. Linguists don't really have a clear-cut explanation for this phenomenon, so don't worry. As long as you use the article properly, you'll be fine. So, to make this clear, here are the rules. As a rule, proper nouns are preceded by the null article. The is used when the head of the noun phrase is a common noun, even in cases of ellipsis. The precedes proper nouns to denote some kind of mental construction in case of a plural, proper, or common nouns, and for rivers. And by that time, you should be able to recap all that in activity number 3 on eCampus.